Hey everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to the Division 2, and today I want to dive into everything revolving around Master difficulty. Over the past few weeks I've seen many players saying that they're pretty much wrapped up with this season of the game. They've done the objectives, got what they wanted, and now it's just time to wait for the DLC next season. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but in case you'd forgotten, this season has one last trick left up its sleeve. And that's that, in just a few weeks' time, we are seeing the release of the first new difficulty tier for the game since Legendary was added back in TU8. That's right, Master difficulty is unlocking as a new challenge tier for this season's climax mission. It's even started popping up as a visual flash in-game already, like you can see here. This thing is fast approaching. Now, maybe you're thinking, why would I want to bother clearing a new difficulty tier? Well, of course there's the inherent gameplay and accomplishment side to it, but also if you want to score yourself a copy of the new exotic chess piece that's coming out, then you're going to have to, because it is exclusive to this season's Master mission. So, given the devs have described this new difficulty as a legendary or incursion level of challenge, today I wanted to put together a complete guide for what you can do now to prepare, including things to farm, builds to set up, and more. Hopefully that all sounds good. If you find this video useful and you want to stay tuned for my further coverage and guides on Master when it releases, as well as everything Division 2, then I hope you will consider clicking that subscribe button. We'd love to have you around, but without further ado, let's dive into this. Alright, now to begin, I wanted to basically just recap what you need to know about Master difficulty in case you've forgotten, or maybe this is your first time hearing about it altogether. It is going to be a new difficulty option just like normal, hard, challenging, etc., available exclusively on climax missions that release from here on out. In case you don't know, climax missions are the game's name for the seasonal finale missions that we get each season. Under the new parameters of Seasons 2.0, you unlock the season's climax mission by completing all of the available scouts for that season. On the day I'm releasing this video, Scout 11 has dropped and there are 16 in total, meaning that 5 weeks from today, Tuesday, February 11th, is when Master difficulty will release. Now, 5 weeks might seem like a long time, and maybe you're wondering why release a guide now, and mostly that is because I wanted to try and give people a heads up and a reminder that this is coming so that if they haven't really dived into the content and features they need in order to access Master, there's still ample time to do so. The first part of that is Scouts. If you haven't done many or any of them yet, not only will you need to get caught up to where we're at now, but you will need to complete all 16 in order to tackle the climax mission and the Master version of it before the season ends. With that down, one of the big questions you're likely wondering, okay, well what exactly is Master? What challenges is it going to bring forth? How does it differ from the other content and difficulties that we have in the game? We don't quite yet have all of the answers to that question, but let's cover what we do know. And to best answer it, let me play you a quick clip from Yannick, the game's creative director. On the launch stream for Year 6 Season 2, this was the brief description he gave for what to expect from Master content.
Okay, so Master difficulty, yes, again, we've talked about that again in the past, but for those who don't know, this is a new difficulty setting that we're going to apply only to the climax mission of that season. So when the season comes to an end and you've done all the scouts, and then we unlock the climax mission, which is the conclusion of that season. We are also going to unlock the Master difficulty of it. So the climax will be available in all the usual difficulties, normal, hard, challenging, heroic. But then on top of that, there will be a Master difficulty. And this one is actually handcrafted in a way. So the NPCs will be tougher, but also the challenges, the encounters, the mechanics will be handcrafted to be made harder. So, it's hard to rank it. I don't really want to create the false expectation here, but we want something that is tough. So just to be clear, if you're not an advanced player with optimized build, it's going to be a very hard challenge. We are looking at, I would say it, but legendary level of difficulty, potentially even incursion level of difficulty. In my dream, this is where we would get. We will see, but it is meant to be harder, for sure, harder than heroic, and this is going to be, the toughest challenge at the end of the season to see have you actually mastered everything that this season has to offer.
So, certainly there are some important details to be gleaned from that. Mostly that, yeah, this thing is likely going to be a challenge. Landing somewhere in the ballpark of legendary or incursion content is no small feat for the vast majority of players. Beyond his words there are a few additional details we know. It was confirmed that Master content will be scaled for 4 players. Not required to have 4 to play it, but scaled for 4. This is much the same as the Paradise Lost incursion that we have in the game, where NPC health and damage as well as the mechanics of the content is crafted with 4 players in mind, but the game game will not physically force you to have a full group or any group to go in and play it. That said, it is unclear as of right now whether or not Master will be achievable solo, and I say that purely because we don't know what kinds of mechanics we might find in there. There is one other big facet of this all to cover, but I'm going to give that its own dedicated section next. Lastly, for this overview kind of chapter, I wanted to outline the reward that will be waiting for you at the end of this. As teased in the intro, that is the new exotic chess piece titled the Provocator. Definitely a very bold, vivid design, I'm a fan. Now, the talent that it will come with is called Challenger, and it states that you will receive 35% damage resistance from enemies within 15 meters of you. Now look, of course that talent won't be universally amazing. In a lot of PvE content specifically, there are likely to be stronger options, but certainly for some PvE instances, and definitely in a lot of PvP applications, I could see this thing becoming quite the staple. We'll see. For now, we don't know how this will be earned from Master, meaning we don't know if it is a guaranteed completion reward from the mission, or whether they might structure it closer to how a raid or incursion exotic is handled with a weekly chest. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Alright, now with all of those details down, let us dive into the one really critical aspect of this to analyze, and that is modifiers. It has been previously outlined how Master difficulty is going to be constructed each season for that season's climax mission with that season's modifiers set in mind. So, 4 Shades of Red that we're playing right now, whatever mission houses the finale and the Master version of it, they're going to handcraft that experience and challenge with range in mind. Of course, that being the theme of this season's global modifier, Point Blank. One important detail, however, is that it was stated that the game will not force you to use modifiers to play Master content if you do not want to. Now, what does that all mean exactly? You don't have to use them, but the content has been designed around them. We're really going to have to wait until we get our hands on it to fully comprehend, I imagine. That said, the devs did say that it will be tougher to tackle Master content if you have the modifiers disabled, which, when you think about it, shouldn't be a huge shock, right? The modifier system, at least this season's ones, can give you massive damage spikes. So if you're somebody who likes the modifiers and already uses and is comfortable with them, fantastic. That knowledge and familiarity is likely going to serve you well. If you're somebody who is a bit more resilient to the modifier system, however, as stated, that's okay. You won't be excluded from playing Master. However, if you're trying to be as prepared and equipped for this new difficulty as possible, it is recommended to try using and incorporating the modifiers into your playstyle and builds. One thing I wanted to shout out in case you're somebody who has tried modifiers at the very beginning of the season and decided that you weren't a fan, especially if the hostile modifiers were the thing that primarily drove you away. The 2 most aggravating ones to fight against, that being Requital and Master of None, both got nerfed in a recent patch. For example, this is me just laying into an NPC that has Requital active. Before the nerf and at the beginning of the season, this would have killed me very quickly. Now it is a minor damage tick. So again, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but if you haven't interacted much with the modifier system yet and you want to try and acquire some of them in the coming weeks to prepare for Master, in the active slot, I think having All Out and Reversal is pretty key. Those both come from the seasonal journey tiers. And then as far as the passive ones, of course, these will differ widely based on preferences and how you have your build structured. But in the context of Master, I would advise targeting ones like Drawback, Impatient, Liability, Retribution, By the Teeth, Tapper, and Bait and Switch. You can farm passive modifiers through the priority objective system, and to try and speed up the process to get the ones that you want, be sure to remember to use any available rerolls and abandons that you may have. Alright, now I really quickly wanted to talk about build making in the context of Master. Now, of course, I cannot recommend you any particular builds because we have not played the content yet. We haven't seen what the mechanics are, what the exact challenges are going to be. However, in general, there are probably a few different combinations or at least loose ideas and templates that you could have ready to go. One is, of course, Striker, right? This is a staple. This works fantastic in legendary content and incursions, which is obviously what this new Master difficulty is going to be built off of. So this is pretty close to the best kind of setup that you can get with it if you're trying to maximize your damage potential. We have 6 reds here, of course, 4 pieces of Striker, both using the chest piece and backpack. We have the Coyote's Mask Exotic, which means I'm keeping my crit chance right around 50%. And then 1 piece of Seska. I'm using then the Lexington with Killer. Again, this is like one of the best options right now. Killer, if you're just going for boss fights, you might want to switch off because you're not obviously going to be getting kills while you're focusing on single target damage, but I will leave that up to you. As far as my modifiers go for this one, again, I'm going off of the ones that I was just recommending in the last section. So we have All Out here. This is kind of the staple where I get a kill at close range, and then that is what a lot of these are built off of. I use Persistence more for just fun to zoom around the map, but you might want to switch that out if you're trying to like maximize your survivability. You could go for Bait and Switch. You could go for something else. So again, I'm not saying this build specifically is going to be like the best thing to run, again, because we haven't seen the mission, we don't know what it's going to contain, but something akin to this is probably a good idea to have ready. Alright, this is another potential loadout if you wanted to go maybe a bit closer to the season's overall theme. We're using the newly buffed aces and eights here along with fully automatic rifles. This is fully a headshot damage build, that is what everything is spec'd into, including the Eagle's Grasp here and the Fox's Prayer. You can see if I jump over to my total headshot damage, we've got 210 on a rifle, that's pretty good. We then got the Artist Tool here, which is really good if you could consistently land those headshots. This is definitely solid for single target damage, and that is backed up by some of the modifiers that we're using on here. We've got Reversal, which again swaps us to having the long range bonus right in front of us, and that can allow us to activate Tapper, which in combination with this build specifically will almost one-shot like the majority of targets in front of you, not bosses, but just about everything else. Although, when many people do this, you could very well swap that out for By the Teeth and run this with a more automatic build, an LMG, an AR, anything like that. So again, you've got plenty of options, and we don't know exactly what build is going to work best in there, but this is another one that you might want to go for. Alright, now the last thing I wanted to cover is what else you can do to prepare. If you're somebody who has got all your modifiers unlocked, you've got a good few builds integrated with them, you feel like you're ready to go, I think it's pretty simple. Practice. The devs have said they're aiming for Master to be a legendary or incursion level of challenge, so hop into that content, preferably with 4 players if you're able to for proper scaling, and refine that playstyle. Learn the best timing with your active modifiers, figure out some of the best passive combos, just get as comfortable and familiar with the entire system as you can. From what it sounds like, Master is going to have plenty of its own tricks and mechanics to learn when it drops, so having to think as little about the modifier mechanics themselves, meaning you've just incorporated them that naturally into your flow and gameplay, that will serve you quite well, I imagine. And there you have it, my friends. That is your complete guide, and look at what you can be doing right now to prepare for the release of Master Difficulty in The Division 2. Again, we've still got a bit of time as it's set to release on February 11th. However, given the time investment that systems like the Seasonal Journey and passive modifier grinding can take, I wanted to give everybody plenty of time depending on how far you plan to go to prepare. I'm definitely quite excited to see what sorts of new mechanics and challenges Master will offer to differentiate itself from a legendary mission or incursion like we have now, and I'm certainly looking forward to the theory crafting and building with the Provocator. It's fun to have a last little content injection for the Seasoneers as we wait for the DLC to arrive, so yeah, fun times ahead. Any questions, thoughts, suggestions for how to best prepare for Master that you might have, I would love to hear about it all down in the comments below. And certainly if you have any follow-up inquiries, I will do my best to respond as always. That is going to do it for me today though, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Out.